Nitai Go Premanandi. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajagacharya Ashtotraka Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Abhay Chanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajagacharya Ashtotraka Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Mathura Dham Ki Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Mayapur Dham Ki Ganga Mai Ki Yamuna Mai Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Srila Prabhupada Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Nitai Go Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glory to Shri Guru and Shri Guru. Hare Krishna. So today we are reading from Canto 4, Chapter 6, titled Brahma Satisfies Lord Shiva. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 4, Chapter 6, verse 45. Tvam karmanam mangalam mangalanam Kartu svalokam tanushe svaparam va Amangalanam chatam mishram ulbanam Viparyaya kena tadeva kasyachit Tvam karmanam mangalam mangalanam Kartu svalokam tanushe svaparam va Amangalanam chatam mishram ulbanam Viparyaya kena tadeva kasyachit Tvam karmanam mangalam mangalanam Kartu svalokam tanushe svaparam va Amangalanam chatam mishram ulbanam Viparyaya kena tadeva kasyachit Tvam karmanam mangalam mangalanam Kartu svalokam tanushe svaparam va Amangalanam chatam mishram ulbanam Viparyaya kena tadeva kasyachit
Tvam karmana mangala mangalana Kartu svalokam tanuse svaparam va विपर्ययाकेन तदेव कस्यचित् त्वं कर्मणां मङ्गलानां कर्तुं स्वलोकं तं शेषतः परं वा अमङ्गलानां च तमिश्रम् उल्बनाम् विपर्ययाकेन तदेव कस्यचित् त्वं कर्मणां मङ्गलानां कर्तुं स्वलोकं तं शेषतः परं वा अमङ्गलानां च तमिश्रम् उल्बनाम् विपर्ययाकेन तदेव कस्यचित् त्वं कर्मणां मङ्गलानां कर्तुं स्वलोकं तं शेषतः परं वा अमङ्गलानां च तमिश्रम् उल्बनाम् विपर्ययाकेन तदेव कस्यचित्
Word for word translation. Tvam, your lordship. Karmanam, of the prescribed duties. Mangala, O most auspicious. Mangalanam, of the auspicious. Kartu, of the performer. Swalokam, respective high planetary systems. Tanushe, expand. Swa, heavenly planets. Param, transcendental world. Va, or Amangalanam, of the inauspicious. Cha, and Tamishram, the name of a particular hell. Ulbanam, ghastly. Viparyaya, the opposite. Kena, why? Tat eva, certainly that. Kasyachit, for someone. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Abhay Chandra Vinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Translation. O most auspicious Lord, You have ordained the heavenly planets, the spiritual Vaikuntha planets, and the impersonal Brahman sphere as the respective destination of the performers of auspicious activities. Similarly, for others who are miscreants, you have destined different kinds of hells which are horrible and ghastly. Yet, sometimes it is found that their destinations are just the opposite. It is very difficult to ascertain the cause of this. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is called the Supreme Will. It is by the Supreme Will that everything is happening. It is said, therefore, that not a blade of grass moves without the Supreme Will. Generally, it is prescribed that performers of pious activities are promoted to the higher planetary systems. Devotees are promoted to the Vaikunthas, or spiritual worlds, and impersonal speculators are promoted to the impersonal Brahman effulgence. But it sometimes so happens that a miscreant like a Jamil is immediately promoted to the Vaikuntha Loka simply by chanting the name of Narayana. Although when a Jamil uttered this vibration, he intended to call his son Narayana, Lord Narayan took it seriously and immediately gave him promotion to Vaikuntha Loka, despite his background, which was full of sinful activities. Similarly, King Daksha was always engaged in the pious activities of performing sacrifices. Yet simply because of creating a little misunderstanding with Lord Shiva, he was severely taken to task. The conclusion is, therefore, that the Supreme Will is the ultimate judgment. No one can argue upon this. A pure devotee therefore submits in all circumstances to the Supreme Will of the Lord, accepting it as all auspicious. Srila Prabhupada is quoting from Canto 10, Chapter 14, verse number 8. Tattenukampam sumikshamano bhunjana evatma kritim vipakaham ridvagvapurvavidadhan namaste jivetayo mukti pade sadaibak. The purport of this verse is that when a devotee is in a calamitous condition, he takes it as a benediction of the Supreme Lord and takes responsibility himself for his past misdeeds. In such a condition, he offers still more devotional service and is not disturbed. One who lives in such a disposition of mind, engaged in devotional service, is the most eligible candidate for promotion to the spiritual world. In other words, such a devotee's claim for promotion to the spiritual world is assured in all circumstances. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Shute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatirubhascha Kripa Sindhu Vaivacham Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone. So this morning we're reading from Canto 4, Chapter 6, verse number 45. The verse that we just read, the translation reads as, O most auspicious Lord, you have ordained the heavenly planets, the spiritual Vaikuntha planets, and the impersonal Brahman sphere as the respective destination of the performers of auspicious activities. Similarly, for others who are miscreants, you have ordained, you have destined different kinds of hells, which are horrible and ghastly. Yet sometimes it is found that their destinations are just the opposite. It is very difficult to ascertain the cause of this. So the context is, as we are reading through this chapter, Brahma, along with the other participants of the sacrifice have come to Lord Shiva and they're asking for forgiveness. As Brahma, at the beginning of this chapter, he chides all the participants saying that you have offended a great personality like Lord Shiva. But he is very kind and merciful, so if you ask for forgiveness, then he'll surely forgive you, and ask him to come in, participate and take his share of the sacrifice. So here we see Lord Brahma is offering prayers to appease Lord Shiva. And when we read these prayers, we may think, especially as Vaishnavas, when we read this translation, most auspicious Lord, you have ordained the heavenly planets, the spiritual Vaikuntha planets, and the impersonal Brahman. So who is this addressed to? Because he's speaking to Lord Shiva. In the 8th canto, when Lord Shiva is being requested to drink the poison, actually Lord Vishnu is standing right there when he's been, when they're requesting Lord Shiva drink the poison. So in Lord Vishnu's presence this is happening, so one may think who's not, one may, just looking at the externals, may think that means that is Lord Shiva superior to Lord Vishnu. That is not the case. In that chapter, Srila Prabhupada writes, whenever such prayers are offered, it is actually offered to Lord Vishnu. In fact, if you look at in Canto 8, Chapter 7, verse number 22, Srila Prabhupada writes, Lord Vishnu acts through Lord Shiva in the creation of the material world. When the Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 14, verse number 4, that He is the shelter of all living entities, Aham Bija Pradapita, this refers to actions performed by Lord Vishnu through Lord Shiva. Lord Vishnu is always unattached to material activities, and when material activities are to be performed, Lord Vishnu performs them through Lord Shiva. When Lord Vishnu is untouched by the external energy, he is Lord Vishnu. But when he is in touch with the external energy, he appears in his feature as Lord Shiva. So here we see that Lord Shiva is being addressed to as a representative of Lord Vishnu. Now, there are many points that are being made, especially at the very beginning of the purport, where the Supreme Personality of Godhead is called the Supreme Will, and we see this being repeated at least through the first half of the purport. And this is something a bit hard for us to understand, the Supreme Will. In the first canto, when Bhishma Deva is about to depart, when he's laying on his deathbed, he's also quite, he strikes a wondrous claim that when he's speaking to the brothers, that how is it you, Yudhishthira, whose dharma personified, had to endure such terrible injustice? You brothers suffered so much. Then he speaks of Mother Kunti. What was her fault? She was widowed and she had to raise her 5 children, and she had to endure so much. And what's even more shocking, this all is happening while in the presence of the Lord himself. Lord Krishna was there with them. And he's saying, alas, I should ascertain that this is all due to inevitable time. And then Prabhupada writes in the purport there, that is described as providence. So this providence, or the Supreme Will, is quite bewildering to us, because somehow or the other we fail to realize that there is a person behind this system. His Holiness Devamrita Maharaj was speaking on this verse, and he was saying, for non-devotees it's most baffling, because they see a system and they don't realize that there is a person behind the system. So they try to understand the system without knowing the person. But as devotees we try to understand the person, and by understanding the person we understand that there is a system that's running under the supervision of this person. So there's a personal touch of the Lord that actually is making this whole show happen, but we fail to realize. Now there's another very important part of this purport that's being mentioned here, especially in the translation, that those who are miscreants go to different kinds of hells, and those that are devotees, those that have performed pious activities, actually their destination is upward. But at times it just seems inverted. In the 3rd canto, there's a beautiful verse again. Aho Bhakyam Tanakala Krutam Jigam Shapad Abhyasadavit Lebe Gatim Datri Uchitam Tanyam Kam Vadaitum Saranam Vrajema. Alas, how shall I take shelter of one more merciful than he who granted the position of mother to a she-demon Putna, Baki, the sister of Bakasur, although she was unfaithful and she prepared deadly poison to be sucked from her breast. So that's the Lord. He takes the smallest good quality and magnifies it. Now just to shift gear and go to the 6th canto. Does anyone want to guess what pastime in the 6th canto is where Lord Shiva is again, in the picture? In the 6th canto, the pastime of Maharaj Chitraketu, especially when it comes to the section of Mother Parvati cursing Chitraketu. Now, as I was reading through the prayers of Chitraketu, and Hidwanadeva Maharaj was actually expanding on that pastime and relating it to this. Maharaj Chitraketu had a son who was, who by the supreme will, by providence, left, and then Narada Muni, through his potency, or he revives, he brings a son, and the son then educates the Maharaj Chitraketu and the other queens on the futility of material existence, and he says, and then Maharaj Chitraketu is enlightened, and Lord Sankarshan actually comes into the assembly and blesses Maharaj Chitraketu. And then what happens next? Maharaj Chitraketu is given an airplane, and he's actually traveling with Vidyadharis, the celestial beauties. And he's actually traveling through in his airplane, singing the glories of the Lord. And what happens next is that he comes through and he's passing through Sumeru mountain. And when he passes through the mountain, he sees that Lord Shiva is actually seated in the assembly with all the sages and Lord Brahma and other personalities are actually seated in the assembly. And what's Lord Shiva doing? Mother Parvati is actually sitting on his lap and he's embracing her. And Chitraketu just laughs and he says, "Oh, how wonderful is this person whose austerity personified is sitting with, is embracing Mother Parvati on his lap, and that too in public, not in private." He's speaking like that. And he's saying it, and obviously our acharyas say that his mood was not like that of Daksha. He wasn't criticizing Lord Shiva in that sense. He wasn't, as you may say, vocal about it. But he's just saying, he's just struck with wonder, how is this happening? Usually things like these, someone would prefer to do it in private, but here it is that he's doing it in public. Maharaj was saying that this is what a modern civilization it is. People think that by performing such acts in public, it adds a flavor, it adds a rasa that that enhances our reputation or whatever. So while this is going on, he says, but our acharyas say he's also saying it just to, in a way, to tell that because Lord Shiva and his followers, they may take this as an example and do it for themselves. So he wants to sort of check Lord Shiva and remind him that he has, people are seeing it and may interpret him differently, even though Lord Shiva is transcendental. So as this is happening, Mother Parvati notices this, and Lord Shiva is silent, his followers are silent, no one else is saying anything, and Mother Parvati says, how is this upstart? This person who's just recently gotten the darshan or the audience of Lord Sankrishna, he's feeling a bit of pride and he's speaking like that. Let me curse him. And Mother Parvati curses him to take birth as Vritrasura. And she says that this is, and then the beauty of the character of Chitraketu is that he hears the curse and he doesn't retaliate. He doesn't defend himself. While, and that's where this verse that's being described today, Tatteno Kampam Samikshamano, it's been, a devotee is tolerant, a devotee understands that whatever is happening is the will of the Lord. And there are many different ways that this pastime has been looked at through the lens of the Acharyas, that the Lord wanted Maharaj Chitraketu back to Vaikuntha as soon as possible. So if we were looking at it, we may think, oh, this is so unjust. Why did he have to be cursed? He could have just continued living on like that with, enjoying the heavenly delights and then come back to Godhead. But why does the Lord have to do this? Why does the Lord have to, arrange for this to be cursed? So Mother Parvati then, and then Maharaj Chitraketu offers very beautiful, he reveals his heart, and there's a very beautiful verse in the 6th canto that actually speaks on it. And he doesn't, like I said earlier, he doesn't retaliate, he doesn't defend himself. Canto 6, chapter 17, verse number 20, he says, the material world resembles the waves of a constantly flowing river. Therefore, what is the curse and what is the favor? What are the heavenly planets and what are the hellish planets? What is actually happiness and what is actually distress? Because the waves flow constantly, none of them has an eternal effect. So, again, we should read this and internalize ourselves, especially when situations come into our life which, tend to agitate us, and then we should try to see the hand of the Lord. Once His Holiness Kadam Karna Maharaj was asked, have you seen Krishna? And Maharaj said, no, but I see Krishna's hand in my life. I can see how, He's working through. Especially we see Krishna's hand in our life through the presence of devotees. So, again, Chitraketu accepts the curse and he goes. And what's most astonishing is, no one else has spoken, unlike the assembly of Daksha where there's cursing, counter-cursing, throwing of different things, there's someone's head being chopped off, someone's mustache being taken off. In that assembly, nothing as such happens. And as Chitraketu leaves, again, what's most astonishing is, that same Lord Shiva, who was sitting in the assembly with all of his followers and demigods and who were hearing him, in that same assembly he tells Mother Parvati, you think you're very beautiful? This Maharaj Chitraketu, look at his beauty. His devotee surpasses your beauty in many, he just says that he has defeated you. In other words, he is saying that the glories of a devotee are actually beyond this world, and you shouldn't have cursed him. Now again, there is always this, and the Acharyas say that in Lord Shiva's mind, it was just sort of a friendly banter that was happening between him and Chitraketu. While Chitraketu was telling him, what are you doing with your wife? on your lap, Lord Shiva is telling him, hey, you've just had audience of Sankarshan, what are you doing with the heavenly, with the celestial damsels in an airplane? So what are you doing? Who are you to tell me? So, and he tells Mother Parvati, actually, he is a devotee of the Lord, and you see, he's accepted this curse. In other words, he's seeing me and Chitraketu on the same level. So, you shouldn't have done this. So he sort of just told her that don't ever do this again, in a nice way. So that same Lord Shiva who was embracing his wife is now actually not chastising her, but mildly saying to her in an assembly again that this was just between me and him. You shouldn't have gotten involved. So there's Lord Shiva's transcendental position. He's not affected by what he was cursed earlier. And similarly in this pastime, as once Lord Brahma requests Lord Shiva to reinstate what was done wrong, you'll see Lord Shiva say that actually I did this only to teach Daksha a lesson, and then Lord Daksha is revived and so on and so forth. So the super excellence of a devotee is actually being mentioned here. And again, this verse, like I said, if you see Srila Prabhupada's life itself, in so many instances, you'll see that he was always acting, always to keep the interest of the Lord. He never, whatever situations he had, he always saw as Krishna's hand being behind it. Now, just recently, I was reading a real life story in His Holiness Radha Maharaj's book, The Journey Within. If any of you don't, please do. It's Maharaj has really encapsulated the teachings of bhakti in a way that's accessible to people, but most importantly, he's given the essence of the Bhagavatam through the real stories of people that are that have had challenges, or in whatever way they've been able to practice the devotional service amidst all trying circumstances. So in this story, I wouldn't say the name, but it's actually there in the book. Maharaj refers to a devotee couple, a very sincere, two very sincere devotees and very dedicated in Mumbai, where this devotee's wife, Mataji, had, they were very sincere and, were really loved by the community. They gave shelter, they still do, and they gave a lot of shelter to people. And this Mataji had cancer, and they had a daughter. They had a grown-up child. And Mataji had cancer, and that she really, struggled a lot through that journey, through the treatment and so on and so forth. And after many, many years, they were blessed with a baby girl. And then when the girl was born, they just felt like this is, source of joy after all these years of, challenges. Now, there's some ray of hope. But unfortunately or fortunately, as we'll see the story unfold, this girl was born with a lot of health complications. So much so that it was determined that 40% of her brain had been damaged at birth itself. So this child could never walk, could never do anything like a child would actually do. So they were just shocked. Again, these are devotees who have really given their all, all of their, not only the time, energy and effort, but their heart to serving the Lord and their spiritual master and Srila Prabhupada. So when this happened, as situations occur to us, we're trying to process it initially. When there are any setbacks that come, we try to, first it's a state of shock, then we try to process it, and then we try to make sense of it. That's just in general psychology as they address it. So when this happened, obviously they were in a state of shock. And when they went through like the first year of the child, and then they would always see that people that they knew in the community, those that had children, they would be so excited to see when the child would first start walking, first start talking. and they realized they would never be able to do this with this, with this soul that has come into their life. So it's like, as Maharaj writes, that they really, for them it was, they just didn't know what to do, and obviously Maharaj, they looked up to Maharaj as their mentor, and Maharaj said that this requires a lot of spiritual maturity to deal with, which is true. We get tested on so many occasions, and we need guidance, so we should seek out guidance wherever we can, because that will help us see things better, especially through the experience of devotees, and somehow the other Krishna will try to reveal to us what. They always said hindsight is always 20/20. Whenever we look back, things make more sense. So they realized that this is a soul who definitely wouldn't be taking birth again. And the sister, the older sister, she always wanted a younger sister. So she just said, look, when we came to the point of acceptance, we realized that this is a soul who will never take birth again. And because this soul is in so much of difficulty, she wouldn't accrue any karma anymore. So let us serve the soul to the fullest that we can. And the moment that they changed their consciousness from they just said to being a servant, then they saw that how Krishna was arranging things, that this girl was actually unifying the whole community. The entire community rallied behind them to support them. And this Prabhu, whose daughter it was, he just said, had we not been a devotee, we would have not had this kind of support system in place for us to help us through this. So he expressed gratitude, and so much so that this little child actually loved the chirping of birds. So the older sister, she went and learned how to, mimic or imitate the sounds of birds, but then actually became a very expert singer. So in Maharaj writes in the book, her singing was such that it enchanted everyone. And it was so sweet and devotional that the little child would always stop crying whenever the kirtan would be heard. So like that, this couple said that this was the greatest blessing in their life, and they saw it as how Krishna, their younger daughter was actually making them Krishna conscious day by day, and it just deepened their attachment to Shri Radha Gopinath, that's the presiding deities in the community. So like that, if we somehow or the other, anything that may happen to us, it's difficult and it requires tolerance. And that's where Krishna says that, it's in the 13th chapter, it's one of the qualities, divine qualities actually is tolerance. And if we are able to even accept it, then that's at least a beginning. That's why you see personalities like these, we may find ourselves to be discouraged, but that's why you see the names of these personalities in the pages of the Bhagavatam. That's why they've made it here. That's what separates us from them. But we've been given a blueprint, and it's harder to act than to actually speak. But this is the examples that have been given to us. So we see here Lord Shiva, those that are reverses, we'll see that, we may think, this person shouldn't be deserving this kind of mercy or this kind of punishment. But actually it is, as Maharaj was saying, because we don't have faith, we try to understand the system and not the person. But actually it should be as devotees, we do it the other way around. We try to understand the person, and then the system clears up for us to make advancement. So that's why Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, only by practicing devotional service one can enter the mysteries of my understanding. So it's the practice of devotional service amidst all these circumstances that endears us to Krishna. And that, like I said, it's a journey, it's a process, it's a practice that we need to strengthen day by day, moment by moment, and that's that gives us hope. So I'll end here if anyone has any question or comment. Yes, Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Just referring to the should we see different results awarded to Ajamila, Daksha, Prajapati, Chitraketu? Should we simply see them as pastimes and ultimately they will be rewarded the highest result in the course of time? Should we see it that way?
So the question is that we should see these personalities such as Chitraketu and Daksha and see them as that in due course of time they'll be given the highest result. Yeah, see, at the end of the day, we always say, right, at the end of Shikshashtakam, you're completely free to do anything and everything, for you'll remain my worshipful Lord unconditionally. So the Lord is completely independent to act as he likes. I'm just trying to remember one of the purports Prabhupada writes about Vidura and Duryodhan, that how he saw it as, even though Duryodhan was acting like that, but he saw it as Krishna, as the hand of the Lord for him to go for pilgrimage. So yes, that's how we see it, that there will be success is guaranteed. Neha Brikamanasti, in this path there's no loss or diminution. So in due course of time, success awaits us, but we have to go through the knocks and punches a little. Thank you. Is there anything else?
We see from the pastimes of Kshilasagar Mantana, Lord Shiva is glorified for taking poison. Mohini Murtilila, we see Lord Vishnu is being glorified. Are there any pastimes which are related to Lord Brahma, who's actually glorified in a similar way?
I can't think of any at this moment. Well, Lord Brahma is being later on gets glorified as Haridas Thakur. Lord Chaitanya comes and lifts him and does his ceremony and bathe, So once when someone asked, why don't we celebrate Shivaratri? And it said that yes, we celebrate Shivaratri by celebrating the appearance of Advaita Acharya, none other than Lord Shiva. So as Haridas Thakur, that's what I can think of at this point in time. Okay. Yeah. Yes, Prabhu. Prabhu. Situation, yeah. Look, it's, as you said, rightly said, when things happen, we get absorbed in the situation. We're trying to process it. Oh, why me? But you see, these personalities, they never question. Obviously, that's what sets us apart from these personalities. How can we see Krishna's hand? How do we... well, it may not happen right away. It may take some time. For example, for the Pandavas, obviously they were loyal to Krishna, but then only when Bhishma Dev was telling them, after everything has happened, he's saying this inevitable time. You only will see it that way, and then Mother Kunti says. So, a devotee had once, I think, asked this to, I can't remember which Maharaj was it, but the question was, it was about seeing Krishna's hand, how do we see Krishna's intervention? Actually, the person said, especially for practicing devotees, Krishna's hand is always there. It just, in every situation, it just requires us a bit of detachment just to see it. Just be a little detached and then you'll be able to see it. Like I said, we'll mostly see it only when we're, looking back in hindsight, but we can see it only if we are slight bit more detached, just to see, okay, now what does Krishna want me to learn? And mostly devotees, as devotees, we should internalize, and that's what gives us the Jnana Chakshu, just to see, okay, oh, this is what Krishna wants me to see. Sometimes it may not happen, or some expert guidance, through mentors. That can always be the case. As Mahajana Yenagata Sapantas, just following the footsteps. But having some mature guidance is obviously the greatest blessing that we can have to see. Okay. Thanks again for your rapt attention, and we shall end here. Grantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki, Nita Go Premanandi, Hari Bol. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Jai Swami.